Hey everyone, this is the Revolutionary Male and I'm Alex. One of the main reasons that I created this channel is because I wanted to start having conversations about men's issues with men and any women obviously who are interested in discussing these topics as well. Because growing up as a man in modern society, we're not given a lot of tools on really how to engage as men in this society that is, generally speaking, increasingly hostile to masculinity as expressed by men. Now, there are a number of unique challenges that men face, and as a consequence of that, we really need to start having conversations about how best to approach these unique challenges, because approaching these unique challenges is going to require a wide variety of solutions depending on who we are, where we're from, and the skills that we have or don't have. So one of the conversations I wanted to have today was about an article that I read, or I found on bold.com, written by Amy Horton. The article is entitled, "I was emotionally available until I dated way too many guys who weren't." One of the unique challenges that we as men face in this world now is how we get blamed for everything. Everything is our fault. And as you'll see here with Amy, as elucidated by the title, she was emotionally available. She was in a place where she was ready to have healthy relationships with men until she dated too many men who weren't ready to have healthy relationships. Honestly, when it comes to personal relationships, one of the primary truths that people need to learn, and we as men really need to learn, is that we attract what we are, and that we have choice and agency into who we invite into our lives. And if we're inviting people into our lives who are not serving us, benefiting us, helping us to grow as human beings, that's a problem. And what's at the root of that problem is ourselves. So I want to actually interrogate this article that Amy Horton has written in order to really tease out what's going on, because you're going to encounter a lot of women who talk this way and who want to blame you for everything. And we need to be ready for these kinds of conversations when we have them in the real world, when we face people like this in the real world. Because we need to start speaking up. We really need to start defending ourselves. All right, so now on to Amy. When I first started dating, I was pretty much an open book. I found it easy to be vulnerable and to let a guy get close to me in dating because I was hopeful it would lead to love. Of course, it didn't take long for relationships and heartbreak to ruin all that. It doesn't feel good to be vulnerable with someone who doesn't reciprocate, and when you've been disappointed one too many times, it's only natural that you start to put up walls. Here are the steps of the path that led to my dark spiral into emotional unavailability. First of all, she's not emotionally available. People who are emotionally available are not open books. That is not healthy. You should not be an open book with someone you don't know. That's very, very typical in people who are what is called codependent. People who are codependent often act as if they are open books, where they ostensibly reveal a lot about themselves in an effort to, in a transactional way, acquire the affection, the love, the attention, whatever it is, of the person they're seeking to get it from. That's not healthy. That's not being an actual open book. People have to earn knowledge and information about you by demonstrating that they are worthy of that trust. You don't just put yourself into a cage with a lion. That is what leads to trauma. That's what leads to unhealthy relationships. That's what leads to the kind of damage we're going to see her go through in this article. So obviously, that's not the fault of the men. She made choices. She chose poorly. We can talk all about men who take advantage of women and men who do bad things. That's not really the purpose of this channel. The purpose of this channel is to address men who are trying to make good choices. And for those of us who are trying to make good choices, and we encounter women like this, we need to be very, very careful. We need to learn how to spot them, because they can do us damage. Number 1, from Amy. At first, I was super sweet and honest. I didn't know any better. I wanted to give all of myself to the person I loved. I was lucky enough that my first boyfriend was gentle with me. He too was sweet and vulnerable. We were very much in love with each other. Unfortunately, we grew up and grew apart. Very vague. What does that mean? She doesn't even tell us who broke the relationship, who ended the relationship. I guarantee you it was her. It wasn't him, because on the whole, men don't leave relationships, women do. So, pretty much everything in this article, or excuse me, in this first point, has absolutely nothing to do with anything that she just mentioned in her prologue. Completely irrelevant. This is not even a step. This has nothing to do with becoming emotionally unavailable. You know, assuming that her point of view here is accurate. It's an accurate reflection of where she was at the time. Number 2, then I got my heart broken. Trying to get over your first breakup is, or excuse me, trying to get over your very first heartbreak is the absolute worst. I felt like I would never recover. Even though I did, I was never the same afterward. I didn't give myself over to guys as easily or as quickly. I made them work a little to get to know me because I didn't want to get hurt again. Again, more red flags here. Much in the second one also to be concerned. It sounds like her first heartbreak, she ended up completely emotionally shut down. That's a problem. That's not a healthy sign. That's not a sign of somebody who's relatively healthy. Not at all. And it's strange because it doesn't seem like the first heartbreak actually has anything to do with the first boyfriend she mentioned in point 1. So again, we don't know anything about the actual relationship that was her first love. Her quote-unquote first love. No real information here. But, of course, I'm sure as any guy who has actually been in this dating market knows, there are a lot of women who, from the outset, have an incredibly high standard of proof that you have to meet in order for them to even begin to remotely engage in good faith with you. The vast majority of the time, most women that you engage with in dating apps and that a lot of men I've talked to, that I've had this experience myself, but I've also engaged in conversations with men where the women are obviously assuming bad faith on your part, and you have to disprove them. You have to disabuse them of that notion. Number 3, still, I always expressed myself openly. I'm fascinated to read this one because this is in contradiction to everything that you just said. I've always been pretty good at verbal communication. When I'm dating someone, I want to talk through everything. How else can you work it out? I don't understand trying to have a relationship without ever talking. Very strange. I'm not even quite sure what to comment on about this, other than the fact that it's in contradiction to what she just said. But okay. Number 4, I got super frustrated when they didn't. I've dated guy after guy who couldn't express their feelings. Okay, now it makes more sense. Either they were too lazy, didn't care enough, were emotionally stunted, or literally had communication blocks. It's the worst. I don't understand how I, as an over-communicator, keep doing this to myself. This is clearly someone who doesn't seem like she's gotten any help or therapy. That's a problem. That's a big, big problem. And let's take a look at the language here too. It's very judgmental. I've dated a guy after guy who couldn't express their feelings. They were either too lazy, didn't care enough, were emotionally stunted, or literally had communication blocks. That's a problem. You don't choose well. And wonder why. Probably because she has a lot of underlying emotional issues and emotional problems with self-worth that lead her to choosing men who are probably not right for her. Number 5. I gave every single one of them my whole heart. God help me. Despite my initial caution, which again stands in stark contrast to what she said 2 points earlier about making men work to earn her. Despite my initial caution, I always loved whoever I was with entirely. Oh my God. Even if I didn't go there right away, I never made them feel bad or unwanted. I don't consider it cool or intriguing when a guy treats me like I'm disposable, so I'd never do that to him. That's a lie. A lot of the times, women, not even just women, people, but we're going to talk specifically about women here. If they're desperate to communicate the negative of something, what they're actually communicating is the positive. The positive is true. So her saying here, let's see, I never made them feel bad or unwanted. What she's actually saying is I made them feel bad or unwanted. She likely did that on purpose. There's no reason that this should be here. We don't talk about stuff that we don't do. Okay? We talk about stuff that we do. We talk about stuff that we do. So, especially when, you have to really, really pay attention to this. When someone, especially a woman, talks about what she does not do, it's the opposite of that. She's speaking in the negative about stuff that she's done in her past. But she's trying to pretend like it didn't happen, or that she's changed, and that she doesn't do that anymore, so it's no longer true for her. Number 6, a lot of them held back. Whether it was out of insecurity, bitterness, or cynicism, they weren't giving back the same amount of affection that I was giving them. I was confused and then felt hurt and rejected. Some of them simply weren't capable of breaking down their own walls, but it still sucked. Jesus Christ. Again, this is supposed to, if this woman was in a healthy place, none of this stuff would be phrased this way or framed this way. If she had actually taken a real, unflinching personal inventory of her history, her behavior, and her mental health, none of what she's talking about would be framed in such judgmental language, such hostile language, such angry language. She would be talking in a lot more neutral sense. It would be more positive and uplifting. It would actually be productive. None of this is productive. She's really just describing herself, either where she is now or where she even was maybe in these relationships with these men because she had been hurt. It's very, very common. Number 7, some of them were emotionally stunted. I can't fix a man, but I sure do seem to try. There you go, further evidence of codependency. People who are codependent are often caretakers. Instead of focusing on themselves and improving themselves and forging their own identity, finding out what it is that they really want and what they really need in relationships, they often focus all their energy and attention on the other person. And they do this not out of any sense of truly trying to help the other person, but because they're trying to buy that person's affection, buy that person's love, buy the happiness with that person, by caretaking. It's very, very unhealthy behavior. I'm a victim of my own savior complex. Jesus. I'm a victim of my own savior complex. Again, she has not dealt with any of this. She's done no work on herself whatsoever. Because if she had, she would actually take responsibility. But she's not. She's a victim of herself. Take some personal responsibility, Amy, please. I don't know what my problem is, but I seem to attract men who can't communicate whatsoever. Maybe it's because I can do enough talking for the both of us. That's not what I want. Maybe you don't communicate as well as you think you do. And people who are codependent are typically very, very poor communicators because they lie by omission. People who are codependent, most likely, as Amy is here, take Amy out of it. People who are codependent are often very untruthful. They may not lie directly, they may not tell deliberate lies, But what they do is they lie by omission, where they're not honest about what they want and what they expect. And so if you fail to meet those, if the other person fails to meet those expectations or fails to provide that person with what they want, they freak out. They get upset. They get angry, despite the fact that they never honestly communicated it in the first place. Amy, if you were such a great communicator, I don't think you would have so many problems attracting men who are not. It's most likely that you're terrified of communication, which is why you attract men who don't communicate. Number 8, some didn't know how to deal. Interesting. I now know better than to ever date a guy who says I intimidate him. Insert eye roll here. If I intimidated you, what the hell do you want with me? I want a man who can keep up with me and who is excited by my strength, not scared by it. I definitely don't want someone who curls up into a little ball when we have problems. Very vague. There's not a lot of real information here, other than the fact that she just thinks she's better. There's an incredible amount of superiority here, so I can imagine that she's very, very condescending and patronizing when she talks to her partners. There's a lot of judgment. There's no good faith in any of this. She is always entering conversations and she's entering into communication with other people in a competitive way, trying to dominate, shame, judge, control, and insult. It's very unhealthy. Number 9, some just sucked at communicating. Sorry, but I have no patience for that anymore. I'm your girlfriend, not your therapist. If you have issues, go work them out elsewhere. I refuse to play mommy to any man. I'm sorry that you can't form sentences that make sense, but I can't pull the words out of you or guess what you mean. It's too exhausting. Wow. Who would want to be with this woman? She's an a-hole. She's just an a-hole. If you're this person's girlfriend, stop trying to be their therapist. Maybe that's where they got the idea in the first place, because you were caretaking. Number 10, I started holding back to protect myself. Codependency. Why would I keep giving and giving when I wasn't getting anything back? It was just stupid. I decided I would see what they were willing to give first and then act accordingly. No more of this imbalance in relationships. Unfortunately, I wasn't finding any open, vulnerable men. Yeah, of course you're not, because you're not open and vulnerable yourself. You can't expect other people to do all the effort, to make all the effort and do all the work if you yourself are not willing to give anything. Not healthy. It's just selfish. Number 11, why open myself up to hurt? I tried really hard to stay emotionally removed from guys, but all that really happened was I acted immaturely in relationships. I cared so much but pretended I didn't. See? Stupid, childish crap, and yet there I was acting like a baby. It was like I regressed more every time I dated someone new. And she's expecting? What kind of man would be attracted to a woman like this? A man who has trouble communicating, who's not very mature, who is probably also codependent, emotionally unavailable. This is who she is. She's attracting men who are like her. And she can't seem to figure out that she is the common denominator. And that's one of the most important things that you need to know when you are out in the dating world and you encounter women. Pay attention to how they talk about their dating history, their relationship history, and themselves. It's really important to pay attention to those things because it reveals a lot about what they will be like to know. Number 12, there's a lot of these. I didn't want to give any more than I got. Dating turned into a game of sorts, and I hate playing games. Apparently you don't. Thus, I came to hate dating. It was all about who could protect themselves the best and who could hold out the longest on admitting their feelings. I got to the point where it freaked me out if a guy actually was emotionally mature. See? There you go. Woman is shooting herself in the foot over and over and over again because she's not actually available. Emotionally unavailable women attract emotionally unavailable men. Number 13, I shut down. After too many heartbreaks, I just gave up on finding love. I figured that I'm never going to meet the guy who gives me his whole heart as readily and happily as I'm willing to give mine. You just admitted that you're not giving yourself. She's not giving anyone her whole heart. This is a lie. This is the lie that people tell themselves to blame others for the situation in which they find themselves. It sucks, but I honestly do feel that way now. I'm extraordinarily cynical when it comes to relationships. That does not surprise me. Now I don't even know, number 14, now I don't even know how to be vulnerable anymore. It feels like a skill I'll have to relearn. You will. I don't even know if I can deal with the right guy if he ever comes along. You won't when you're like this. I'm so guarded now that I don't know how to let down my walls. It'll be a problem even for the most patient of men. I'm a lost cause. A lot of negative beliefs here. Number 15, it'll take a very special man to break down these walls. See? Savior. She wants a white knight to come in and save her from herself. That's not going to happen. And it shouldn't happen. And the fact that she expects it is insulting. I'm out of practice in the art of vulnerability. Sure, I'm honest and open. No, you're not. But in a completely different way. That's a lie. I'll tell just about anyone just about anything. That's a problem. But I deflect true vulnerability with sarcasm and humor. That's a problem. God forbid I show how I really feel. I hope that if my guy ever comes along, I don't lose him the way I lost all those previous men lost me. The way all those previous men lost me. Jesus. There's a lot of issues there. And the right guy's not going to come along for Amy. Not anytime soon. Not unless you get some serious help. And if you yourself are finding yourself believing these sorts of things about yourself, you're very likely are going to need some help too. But that's all I got for today, guys. I appreciate your views. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you again on the next Revolutionary Mail.